The sky over Willow Creek was a deep, cerulean blue, streaked with wisps of cloud that seemed to be moving in formation. A group of humans, their faces creased with concern and determination, hurried across the sunlit grass towards a tall metal fence topped with razor wire. Inside the enclosure, the air hummed with an otherworldly energy, and beyond it, a figure moved silently under the vast sky. "Can't you just leave us alone?" a small voice cried out, barely audible over the distant hum of machinery. The humans paused, their eyes scanning the ground, until they spotted a little girl, no more than 6 years old, sitting alone near an old oak tree, her head bowed and her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The leader of the group, a woman with graying hair tied back in a practical ponytail, approached the girl cautiously. "Hey there," she said gently, her voice soft but firm. "What's your name?" "Lila," the girl mumbled, glancing up at the humans with wide eyes that mirrored the color of the sky above them. The woman knelt down beside Lila, her expression one of deep sympathy. "Are you okay, Lila? What brings you here?" Lila's gaze darted around nervously before settling back on the woman. "They're hurting my mom," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Who's hurting your mom?" another member of the group asked, stepping forward to stand beside the woman. Lila pointed towards the fence. "Those people inside, they are not being nice to her." The woman exchanged a worried glance with her companions. "Is your mom inside there?" Lila nodded vigorously, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Yeah, I saw them take her. 'Tis big and gray and has wings," she added, her voice full of confusion and fear. A murmur of conversation rippled through the group as they tried to process Lila's words. "Big and gray with wings?" one man repeated, his voice tinged with disbelief. The woman kneeled down again next to Lila, her eyes narrowing. "Tell me more about your mom. What else can you tell us?" Lila took a deep breath and looked up at the sky, as if trying to summon courage. "She's not like the other bees." "'Tis different." "Different how?" the woman asked. "'Tis a dragon," Lila said simply, her eyes wide with earnestness. The woman's heart skipped a beat. "A dragon? What do you mean by that?" Lila's eyes darted towards the fence once more. "She helps the bees. She protects them from bad things." "You're saying your mom is a dragon that lives among the bees?" another person asked, his voice skeptical yet intrigued. Lila nodded solemnly. "Yeah, she's my mom." The woman placed a hand on Lila's shoulder, her mind racing with possibilities and questions. This was no ordinary situation. "Okay, Lila, we need to get closer. Can you show us where your mom is?" Lila looked at the razor wire fence and bit her lip, clearly nervous about approaching it. "I can't go in," she said softly. "Then show us how to get in," the woman urged, determination shining in her eyes. She stood up and motioned for her group to follow. As they began walking towards the entrance, a low hum grew louder, echoing through the air. "Wait, what's that noise?" one of them asked, looking around with a sense of unease. A figure suddenly appeared from behind the oak tree, drawing everyone's attention. It was a large humanoid woman, her skin a deep gray and covered in patches of iridescent scales that shimmered like dragonfly wings in the sunlight. Her eyes were a striking shade of violet, and she carried herself with a regal confidence that spoke of ancient lineage. "Please," Lila said, jumping up from her spot on the ground to stand next to the strange woman. "You have to help my mom." The gray-skinned woman's gaze shifted to the group of humans, her expression unreadable but tinged with protectiveness towards Lila. "They are hurting her," she repeated Lila's words, her voice low and resonant. "Is she your mother?" one of the humans asked, their shock evident. The woman nodded slightly, acknowledging the connection before turning back to Lila. "We need to find a way inside." Lila pointed towards a small gap in the fence, hidden behind an overgrown bush. "There's a hole there," she said, her voice filled with hope. The group moved swiftly and quietly towards the gap. As they approached, Lila's protector placed herself between them and the enclosure, watching them closely as if gauging their intentions. "Why are you helping these humans?" another of the group asked, his tone wary. "They mean well," the the woman replied simply, her eyes never leaving Lila. "And besides, your methods are not my concern. I just want to stop the pain." The group exchanged glances, a mixture of caution and respect evident on their faces. The leader stepped forward again and addressed the grace-skinned woman directly. "We want to help your mother, but we need to know more about what's going on inside first." "We don't have much time," the woman replied, her voice a warning. "She is suffering." "We understand," the woman nodded, "but we can't just storm in there without knowing what to expect." The leader turned to Lila. "Do you know what they are doing to your mother?" Lila's eyes welled up with tears again. "They are trying to hurt her. Just trying to protect everyone." The group listened intently, their minds working overtime to come up with a plan. The gray-skinned woman's presence was both reassuring and daunting. They were in uncharted territory, facing an otherworldly being who could turn the tide of their mission or crush it underfoot. "We need to act fast," one member said, his voice firm. "But we also need a way in that won't put Lila in danger." The gray-skinned woman nodded in agreement. "I will lead you in." "But how do we get inside?" the leader asked, her gaze searching the fence for any weak spots. Lila pointed to the small gap once more. "There's a hole there. We can climb through." "All right," the woman nodded decisively. "Let's move now." The group began to prepare for the breach, their hearts pounding with anticipation and fear. The gray-skinned woman turned to Lila, her expression softening into one of parental concern. "Stay here," she instructed gently. But Lila shook her head fiercely. "I want to go with you." The woman hesitated, then gave a curt nod. "Very well, but stay close." Lila's eyes lit up with determination. "I will," she promised. With their plan in place, the group prepared for action, their hearts filled with a mix of fear and resolve as they approached the breach. They needed to find out what was happening inside that fence and stop it before it was too late. And Lila's mystery, his protector, stood ready to lead the way. But as they neared the gap, an alarm began to sound from within the enclosure. The pitch of the hum increased exponentially, signaling their discovery by the guards patrolling the area. "We don't have much time," the woman warned. "Let's go," the leader shouted, and with a final glance at Lila, they all began to climb through the gap in the fence. Inside, the humming grew louder, echoing off the walls of the hive. The group paused just inside the enclosure, their eyes adjusting to the brighter lights of the facility. A guard appeared, his face contorted with rage and disbelief. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice loud and sharp over the hum of the machinery. "We're here to help," the leader replied, stepping forward. The guard's face twisted into a sneer. "No one helps here." Before any further words could be exchanged, another alarm blared from deeper within the facility. The guard turned sharply, sprinting towards it without another look at the intruders. "We need to move now," the leader said, turning to her group and giving them a brief nod of encouragement. With Lila's protector leading the way, they began to navigate the hive, their movements swift yet cautious. Each step brought new questions and uncertainties, but no time for answers. The urgency was palpable, their hearts racing with a mix of adrenaline and dread as they pushed deeper into the heart of the facility. But as they reached an intersection, a thick black smoke began to seep from behind a door at the end of one corridor. The alarm grew louder and more frantic, signaling the increasing urgency of the situation. "What's in there?" Lila asked, her voice small but steady. The leader glanced at the smoke, her mind racing with possibilities. "It doesn't matter," she said decisively. "We need to get past it. We can't just leave it like this," Lila's protector argued, her tone firm and commanding. "Wait here," the leader instructed, addressing the others before turning back to Lila and her protector. "We'll be right back." As the group moved forward, their urgency growing with each passing moment, they knew they were facing something far beyond what any of them had anticipated. The truth behind the facility's operations and the fate of Lila's mother lay just beyond that smoke-filled door. But every step closer brought them closer to danger and the unknown. With their hearts pounding in unison, they approached the door, ready for whatever awaited them on the other side. Each breath they took was a step closer to understanding, and with it, the possibility of rescue or disaster. But as they prepared to enter the smoke-filled room, the hum of machinery suddenly grew deafening, signaling an approaching storm of unknown proportions. The leader turned to her group, her eyes reflecting the tension that hung in the air like a fog. "We can't stop now," she said, her voice steady but tinged with resolve. "Lila's mother and everything here is counting on us." With a final nod, they pushed open the door, stepping into the heart of the storm and the unknown. The room beyond was dark, filled with shadows that danced at the edges of their flashlight beams. Machines whirred and pulsed, emitting a sickly green light that flickered intermittently across the walls. Amidst the chaos, the sound of strained machinery and muffled cries filled their ears. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, its form shrouded in shimmering scales and wings that seemed to stretch endlessly. It was Lila's mother. The leader stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her heart. "We're here to help," she called out, her words cutting through the din. Lila's mother turned towards them, her eyes meeting those of her daughter standing behind the humans. A mix of relief and sorrow washed over her face, but it was quickly replaced by a protective stance. "Stay back," she warned, her voice resonant with authority. "We need to get you out of here," the leader said, her tone unwavering. "We're not leaving without your mother," Lila added quietly, her hand reaching for her protectors. The air grew tense as everyone prepared themselves for what might come next. The noise intensified, machines working overtime as if trying to seal off any escape routes. The group exchanged nervous glances, their muscles tensed for action. "We have to move fast," Lila's protector said, stepping forward with a determined stride. As the group moved closer, another figure darted out from behind machinery, a scientist holding a vial of glowing liquid that seemed to pulse with sinister purpose. "Stop right there," he shouted, brandishing the vial menacingly. The leader's eyes narrowed as she assessed the situation. "We're not here for you," she replied coolly, her gaze unwavering. "Then who are you here for?" the scientist demanded, his voice laced with a growing sense of desperation. "The dragon," Lila's protector answered, stepping forward. The scientist hesitated, then with a sudden movement, he lunged towards them. But before he could reach them, Lila's mother surged forward, her wings spreading wide as she emitted a powerful pulse of energy that sent the scientist flying back into a wall. "Everyone move!" Lila's mother shouted, her voice ringing with authority and urgency. With renewed resolve, the group sprinted towards an exit, their hearts pounding in sync with the thrumming machinery. They were racing against time, against the unknown forces that lurked just beyond the glow of their flashlights. As they burst through the door and into the corridor beyond, they knew the hardest part was yet to come. The hum of machinery grew louder, an ominous warning that the facility was tightening its grip. Lila's mother hovered ahead, her wings slicing through the air as she led them towards a distant exit. But as they approached, another alarm sounded, signaling the arrival of more guards. The leader's eyes darted back and forth, trying to find a way out before it was too late. "We need a distraction," one of the humans said, his voice tight with tension. Lila's protector nodded, her eyes glinting with resolve. "I can provide it." Before anyone could argue, she launched herself into the air, her wings slicing through the hum of machinery. As she flew towards the source of the incoming threat, the room erupted in chaos as she engaged the approaching guards, buying precious time for the group to escape. But even as they fled, the leader's mind raced with new questions. What was the purpose of this facility? Why was Lila's mother here? And what were the scientists trying to do to her? The answer hovered on the edge of her consciousness, just out of reach. But one thing was clear: whatever it was, it had to be stopped. With a final burst of speed, they reached the exit, Lila's mother pushing them through just ahead of another wave of guards. As they emerged into the cool air outside, They breathed a collective sigh of relief, but their eyes never left the facility behind them. "We can't stop here," the leader said, her voice steady yet urgent. "We need to figure out what's going on, and who's behind this." Lila stood beside her protector, her small hand clutching at the gray-skinned woman's jacket. "Please, you have to save my mom," she whispered. "We will," Lila's protector promised, her eyes meeting those of the leader with a steely determination. "But we need to find out more about this place first." The leader nodded in agreement, her mind already racing ahead to the next step. They had barely scratched the surface of what was happening inside that facility, and the answers they sought were still hidden beneath layers of mystery and deceit. But one thing was clear: the battle for Lila's mother, and the truth behind this place, was only beginning. And with every step forward, the stakes grew higher. As dawn began to break, painting the sky with streaks of pink and orange, the group gathered outside the facility, their minds buzzing with plans and possibilities. The gray-skinned woman turned towards Lila, her eyes softening as she placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "We'll find out what's happening," she assured Lila, her voice steady yet reassuring. Lila looked up at her mother, her eyes filled with hope and fear. "You promise?" The woman nodded firmly. "I promise." But as the sky brightened, casting long shadows across the landscape, the group knew they were only just beginning to unravel the web of mystery surrounding this facility and its alien drag. On Queen, the truth was out there, waiting to be discovered, but with it came danger and the unknown. "We need a plan," the leader said, her voice breaking the silence that had fallen over the group. "We can't just stand here." "Agreed," one of them nodded, his gaze turning towards the facility once more. "We need to know what they are doing here and why." The gray-skinned woman stepped forward, her expression resolute. "I will find out, but I'll need your help to keep Lila safe until we do." "We'll protect her," another member said, his voice steady and determined. With a final nod of agreement, the group began to formulate their next move, each heart pounding with a mix of fear and resolve. They had taken the first step towards uncovering the truth, but the road ahead was long and fraught with danger. The facility loomed before them, a silent sentinel in the growing light of dawn, its secrets waiting to be uncovered. And as the sun rose higher into the sky, casting its golden rays across the landscape, the group knew they had no choice but to press on, driven by the urgency to rescue Lila's mother and unravel the mystery that lay within. But what awaited them on the road ahead was nothing short of a battle against the forces that sought to keep the truth hidden. And with each step forward, the stakes grew higher, the tension tightening like a noose around their hearts. As the sky began to blaze with the first light of day, the group turned back towards the facility, ready to face whatever challenges lay in wait. The morning light was their signal to move forward. The battle had only just begun. As the sound of clashing swords and roars of frustration echoed around them, Serafina locked eyes with the human protagonist, Alex. The intensity of their shared gaze said more than words ever could. Thighs was no ordinary conflict. The fate of both their worlds hung in the balance. Alex, a soldier from Earth with scars that spoke of countless battles fought and won, felt an unexplainable connection to Serafina. Her dragon wings shimmered in the dim light of the cavern they were battling through, a stark contrast to her graceful yet deadly form. Each movement she made seemed both fluid and calculated, a dance of death and survival. "Stay close," Serafina whispered urgently, as a wave of alien warriors advanced on them. "We need to find the core of their base. That's where the real threat lies." Without hesitation, Alex followed her lead, his senses heightened by the adrenaline rush and the closeness of danger. They moved through the labyrinthine corridors, picking off enemy soldiers with precision and speed. But every step deeper into this alien stronghold brought a new level of peril. Serafina stopped suddenly, her hand clutching Alex's shoulder to halt him mid-step. "Quiet," she murmured, scanning their surroundings with an intensity that left no room for doubt danger was near. She pointed to a vent high above them, barely visible in the dim light. "If we're going to get inside undetected, this is our only chance." They quickly made their way to the vent, and, using grappling hooks and specialized equipment, they scaled the wall. Once inside, the tight space forced them into close quarters, their breaths mingling in the confined air. As they moved through the ventilation system, Alex couldn't help but notice the intricate details of Seraphina's scaled skin up close. The texture, the colors, every detail spoke of an alien world he had only just begun to understand. Yet in this moment of peril, there was no room for wonder. Survival was their only focus. They emerged from a vent into a darkened control room filled with blinking lights and strange machinery. Seraphina crept forward silently, checking each corner before waving Alex to follow. They found themselves in the middle of a network of alien computers and consoles. The heart of the base pulsed with energy and intelligence, waiting for them to disrupt it. "Here," Seraphina whispered, placing her hand on a large console. "I can disable their main defense systems from here." She began typing furiously, her fingers dancing over an interface that seemed alien even to her. Alex moved to cover her back as she worked, his senses on high alert for any sign of approaching danger. He noticed the intricate patterns in the floor and walls, a testament to the technological prowess of these aliens. The sheer complexity of their technology was both awe-inspiring and intimidating. Suddenly, a series of beeps and flashing lights drew their attention to a screen displaying an incoming transmission. "They know we're here," Seraphina said, her voice tight with tension. She quickly typed commands, redirecting the system's focus away from them. As they worked to disable the defense systems, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. A nagging sensation in the back of his mind warned of impending doom. But now wasn't the time for doubts. They had to succeed. He readied his weapons and kept watch. Just as Seraphina completed her work, alarms began blaring throughout the base. "Move," she ordered without breaking eye contact with him. They rushed to the entrance they had come through, only to find it sealed shut by a powerful energy field. "We need to find another way out," Alex said, his heart racing with adrenaline and fear. Seraphina nodded grimly. "Follow me." She led them through a maze of corridors and hidden passages, her knowledge of the base guiding them towards an emergency exit marked on their map. But each step brought them closer to new dangers. As they ran, they encountered groups of alien soldiers, each encounter more intense than the last. Seraphina's quick thinking and Alex's sharp reflexes kept them alive. They fought through hordes of enemy soldiers, their movements synchronized in a deadly dance. "We can't keep running," Seraphina panted, her voice strained with exertion. "We need to turn this around." Alex nodded, his mind racing with strategies. "If we can lure them into the central control room and destroy the core there, it'll disrupt their entire network." Seraphina's eyes lit up with understanding. "A suicidal mission, but it might work. We'll need to be precise and quick." They set their plan in motion, drawing the remaining enemy soldiers into a series of traps and ambushes. Each soldier fell under Seraphina's calculated strikes, while Alex provided cover fire. Despite their efforts, the numbers against them seemed overwhelming. As they neared the central control room, Alex felt a growing sense of dread. The room was packed with enemy soldiers, weapons drawn and ready to attack. Seraphina led him through a series of rapid-fire maneuvers, engaging the enemies in close combat. In the heat of battle, Seraphina's movements were a blur of speed and grace. She expertly took down multiple opponents, her eyes always on Alex's back. With each strike, she felt a deeper connection to him, a bond forged in the fires of conflict. Alex fought with everything he had, channeling his anger and fear into deadly precision. His heart pounded as he watched Seraphina's back, aware that even the slightest mistake could cost them everything. They finally reached the main console at the center of the control room. "Get ready," Serafina said, her voice resolute. "When I give the signal, we hit this switch." The moment stretched out, each second a battle against time and odds. The room was filled with the sounds of their final stand screams, gunfire, and the heavy thuds of blows exchanged. "Now!" Serafina yelled, lunging forward to trigger the switch. As she did, Alex covered her, taking out the last few enemies with a series of expert shots. A powerful explosion rocked the room as the core went down, shaking the entire base. The alien soldiers were caught off guard, and many fell in the chaos. Serafina and Alex took advantage of the confusion to make a desperate break for freedom. They sprinted through the collapsing ruins of the base, the ground shaking under their feet with each step. The walls seemed to close in around them as debris filled the air. They pushed on, fueled by sheer determination and the knowledge that they couldn't give up now. As they burst out of the base's entrance, Serafina collapsed onto her knees, gasping for breath. Alex knelt beside her, his hands hovering, but unsure if he should help or let her rest. "We did it," she said, a small smile on her lips despite the exhaustion. "We stopped them." But as they caught their breath, a distant rumble filled the air. The ground beneath them shook violently, and they looked up to see the alien base crumbling in a massive explosion. Serafina's eyes widened in horror as she realized what was happening. The shockwave from the destruction of the core had unleashed an uncontrollable reaction, setting off a chain of catastrophic events within the base. The very foundation of their enemy's power was being torn apart, and with it, the fragile balance of the battlefield. "We have to get out of here," Serafina shouted, rising to her feet despite the pain. She dragged Alex along as they raced towards the nearest escape route, a narrow tunnel that led away from the collapsing base. As they ran, the walls around them crumbled, showering them with debris. The air was thick with dust and smoke, making it hard to see or breathe. Panic began to set in, but Serafina's determination kept them moving forward. They finally reached the mouth of the tunnel and skidded to a stop, breathless and gasping for air. Behind them, the sky lit up with the fiery glow of destruction as the base exploded in a cataclysmic inferno. "We made it," Alex said, his voice raw with emotion. But Serafina was already shaking her head, her eyes locked on something behind him. "No," she whispered, turning to face the horizon. "It's only just beginning." As they turned, a figure emerged from the smoky, cloaked figure with an unmistakable presence. Alex felt a chill run down his spine as he recognized the form. It was the leader of the enemy forces, who until now had been nothing but a shadowy figure operating from the shadows. The figure approached them slowly, the cloak billowing in the wind like a dark specter. "Well done," the voice echoed through the air, seemingly coming from all directions at once. "But this is only the start of our plan." Alex and Serafina exchanged a glance, their minds racing with the realization that they had underestimated their enemy. The destruction they had wrought was a mere feint, a diversion to mask the true objective. The figure stepped forward, revealing an otherworldly visage beneath the hood, a face that was both human and alien, a synthesis of species that spoke of ancient knowledge and dark intentions. "You've proven to be formidable opponents," the voice continued, "but our plans are far too vast for such simple obstacles." Serafina's grip on her weapons tightened as she prepared for another fight. "What do you mean?" she demanded. The figure's smile was cold, almost mocking. "With the fall of this base, we gain access to the next phase of our operation, the launch of an interstellar network of dark technologies that will ensure our dominance over all worlds." Alex's eyes narrowed as he pieced together the new information. "You were using this battle to cover your true intentions?" The figure nodded, the cloak fluttering ominously in the wind. "Praesium start unks." The figure's eyes gleamed with an unsettling intensity beneath the hood, their voice low and almost hypnotic as they continued. "Indeed, your perception is sharper than I had anticipated. But let us not focus on this skirmish alone. There are greater forces at play here. Aaron's heart raced, but he kept his expression neutral, focusing instead on the shifting shadows around them. And what greater forces are these? He inquired cautiously. They aim to reshape the world order, replied the figure, as if they had read Aaron's thoughts. A new era of control and order, designed to stifle dissent and rebellion alike. Aaron felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The words painted a grim picture that threatened everything he held dear. And you plan to be part of this new order, he stated, more than asked. The figure let out a soft laugh that seemed to echo in the void, chilling Aaron to the core. "Oh no, young one," they said with a dismissive wave of their hand. "I am above such mundane things. My role is far more strategic." Aaron's instincts screamed at him to act, but he hesitated, his eyes darting around for any sign of movement or opportunity. "And what exactly is your strategic role?" "To disrupt and destabilize," replied the figure, their voice dripping with malice. "To ensure chaos reigns until they are ready to step in." Anger began to simmer within Aaron, but he kept his composure, knowing full well that now was not the time for emotional outbursts. "And what of the innocents caught in your crossfire?" For a moment, the figure fell silent, and Aaron thought he detected a flicker of something, perhaps regret, in their eyes before it vanished. Then their expression hardened once more, and they said, "There is no room for sentimentality in the grand scheme of things." Aaron felt a pang of sorrow, but he pushed it aside, focusing on the task at hand. "Your methods may be ruthless," he began, his voice steady, "but I will not let you win." The figure's lips curled into a mocking smile. "You are young and idealistic," they said dismissively, "but your resolve is commendable." With a swift motion, the figure pulled back their hood, revealing a face that was both strikingly beautiful and terrifying in its intensity, a face that Aaron had seen before in his dreams and nightmares. "You know me well," the figure murmured, as if confirming Aaron's worst fears. "And yet you persist." Aaron's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of information that had been swirling around him. "Cale," he whispered, his voice barely audible but clear in its accusation. The figure nodded, satisfaction evident in their eyes. "That is correct," Cale said smoothly, their gaze never leaving Aaron's. "And now you know my true purpose." Aaron's hand moved to his sword, ready himself for the impending confrontation. "Why did you reveal yourself now?" "To test your resolve," Cale replied with a chilling grin. "To see if there is still hope for redemption within you. But I must admit, I am disappointed." Aaron took a deep breath, letting the frustration and fear ebb away as he prepared himself mentally for the fight ahead. "There's always hope," he said firmly, his voice unwavering. Cale's expression hardened as they regarded Aaron with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. "Very well," Cale said with a resigned sigh, their eyes narrowing ever so slightly. "We shall see how long that lasts." As the words faded into the air, a wave of adrenaline surged through Aaron. The moment hung heavy with tension, each breath a potential trigger for the clash to come. He could feel Cale's gaze upon him, searching for any sign of weakness. Aaron returned the stare, refusing to break eye contact, his heart pounding in his chest. "Very well," Aaron said, his voice strong and steady. "Let's see this through to the end." Cale chuckled darkly, the sound echoing off the surrounding walls. "Your spirit is admirable," they said, their gaze still unwavering, "but it will not last long against mine." With that, Cale moved with startling speed, pulling out a slender blade of silver that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Aaron mirrored the action, his own sword clashing with Cale's as sparks flew and the echoes of metal on metal rang through the air. Their movements were swift and precise, each attack met with deflection or parry. Aaron pushed himself to his limits, every part of him focused on defeating Cale. But as the battle raged on, he began to notice subtle patterns in Cale's attacks, a rhythm that hinted at deeper intentions beyond the immediate fight. The landscape around them shifted and blurred, the boundaries between reality and illusion becoming increasingly indistinct. Aaron struggled to keep track of his surroundings, knowing that any moment could be his undoing. "Your skill is impressive," Cale said through gritted teeth as they dodged a particularly vicious thrust from Aaron's sword. "But it is your heart that will ultimately be your downfall." Aaron's breaths came in short bursts, his muscles straining under the exertion. But he refused to let Cale's words distract him. With renewed determination, he pressed forward, knowing that victory was within reach. "Only time will tell," Aaron panted between attacks, his voice hoarse but resolute. As the conflict intensified, Aaron began to see glimpses of a larger strategy emerging from the chaos. Cale was not just fighting him, they were engaging in a broader, more nuanced battle of wills and perception. Each move was calculated to push Aaron towards a predetermined outcome. With a sudden burst of clarity, Aaron realized that Cale's true goal was not simply his defeat, but rather his subjugation, to turn him into another pawn in their grand design. Determined not to fall into such a trap, Aaron shifted his tactics, focusing on disrupting Cale's rhythm and forcing them into uncharted territory. Their swords clashed again and again, the air buzzing with energy and tension. Each blow was more powerful, each parry more desperate. The fight had become a dance of shadows and light, where every move could mean the difference between triumph and failure. Cale's eyes flashed with recognition as Aaron's strategy began to take hold. For a moment, there was a pause, both combatants locked in a silent stand-off, each searching for an opening, an advantage. "Your resilience is commendable," Cale said at last, their voice tinged with admiration. "But it will not save you." But Aaron had seen the truth behind Cale's words. This was not just about him, it was about the entire fabric of their world. The battle was a microcosm of the larger struggle, and each victory or defeat would have far-reaching consequences. With a final surge of strength, Aaron disengaged from Cale's blade, launching himself forward with a swift kick that sent Cale stumbling back. Seizing the moment, he pressed his advantage, driving Cale towards the edge of the battlefield where an ancient symbol was etched into the ground. "Not today," Aaron said grimly, his sword poised for the decisive blow. But Cale was not about to give up so easily. With a swift motion, they conjured a shield of pure energy, deflecting Aaron's attack and pushing back with a burst of power that sent them both sprawling. Exchanging a wary glance, they scrambled to their feet, both knowing that the fight had entered its final stage. The stakes were higher than ever before, each moment fraught with danger and uncertainty. As the battle raged on, Aaron's resolve only grew stronger. He knew that this was not just about defeating Cale, it was about preserving the hope of a better future for all those who would be caught in the crossfire of their war. With that thought in mind, he redoubled his efforts, every strike and parry driven by an unyielding determination to see this through. And as the conflict reached its climax, Aaron's eyes never left Cale's, their gazes locked in a silent duel of wills, each move a testament to their unwavering resolve. The air between Aaron and Cale hummed with the tension of two hearts beating fiercely against each other. Beyond the edge of their awareness, the world seemed to pause, as if waiting for the outcome of this moment. Cale took a step forward, breaking the deadlock momentarily, as he held out his hand to Aaron. It was an olive branch, an unspoken plea for peace and understanding. Aaron's eyes softened momentarily, but she didn't reach for his hand. Instead, her gaze dropped to the ground, a rare show of vulnerability. "I don't know if I can trust you," she whispered, her voice cracking with the strain of holding back tears. Cale felt the weight of her words like a punch to the gut. "I understand," he replied, his tone a mix of determination and sorrow. He stepped closer, closing the gap between them just enough that their hands brushed against each other's warmth. "But I won't give up on you." The intensity in Kale's eyes told Aaron more than his words ever could. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply, and when she opened them again, there was a spark of defiance mingled with hope. It was a moment frozen in time, a fragile truce in the midst of chaos. "Show me," she challenged, her voice stronger now. "Show me what you're willing to do." Kale didn't hesitate. With a nod, he turned and began walking away, beckoning Aaron to follow him. She hesitated only for a second before falling into step beside him. Their destination was the old, dilapidated cathedral on the outskirts of town, where legend spoke of an ancient spell that could mend broken hearts. As they walked through the darkening streets, shadows playing tricks with light, the tension between them shifted. It wasn't released entirely, but it was tempered by a glimmer of hope. Aaron's grip on her sword loosened slightly as Kale's footsteps steadied her mind, filling her heart with the promise of something more. The cathedral loomed ahead, its towering spires reaching skyward like fingers etching the heavens with their despair and longing. Inside, the grandeur of the place seemed to echo their silence, the stone walls whispering secrets of old and new beginnings alike. Aaron's breath caught in her throat at the sight of the altar, where light filtered through stained glass, casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the ancient floors. Kale knelt beside it, tracing the intricate carvings on the cold stone with his fingers. "This was the place where my ancestors brought their most precious treasures," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "The temple was more than a sanctuary. It was a symbol of strength and resilience." Aaron watched him closely, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew what he was doing. Kale was trying to connect with something deeper within her, a part of her that yearned for peace and stability. He turned to face her then, his eyes reflecting the multicolored lights from above. "And now I bring you here because—" Kale paused, searching for the right words amidst the swirl of emotions swirling around them. "I want to show you something even more precious." With that, he pulled out a small, intricately carved box wrapped in faded silk, and opened it to reveal a glowing blue stoneth heartstone. The gem was said to hold the essence of peace and forgiveness, the very essence of what Aaron needed right now. She gasped softly, her hand reaching out as if drawn by an unseen force. The stone pulsed with a warm energy that seemed to resonate deep within her core, stirring something primal yet hopeful inside her chest. It was a symbol of everything they were fighting for, everything worth holding on to despite the chaos around them. "I know it's not easy," Kale continued, his voice trembling slightly, but steady nonetheless. "But I believe in us, what we can become together." Aaron's heart clenched painfully. She could feel the truth of his words resonating within her soul, challenging her to step into a future she hadn't dared imagine before. Kale was offering more than just an olive branch. He was offering himself a chance at a new beginning. Without another word, Aaron stepped forward and placed her hand gently over Kale's on the heartstone. The warmth from the gem seeped through her skin, mingling with the heat of Kale's fingers as they intertwined around it. It was a moment of shared vulnerability, each trusting in the other's strength to heal what had been broken. With their hands clasped tightly around the heartstone, Aaron and Kale felt an unspoken understanding bloom between them, a promise wrapped in the glow of blue light. The moment was suspended, timeless, as the stone pulsed with renewed energy, the ancient magic stirring within it to mend the fractured pieces of their world. When they finally released the stone, its glow fading back into a quiet hum, Aaron looked up at Kale with a mixture of pain and hope etched on her face. There was still fear and hurt there, yes, but also something else, a flicker of acceptance and trust. She leaned forward then, pressing her forehead against Kale's in a silent gesture that spoke volumes. "I'm scared," she whispered, her breath warm against his skin. Kale closed his eyes, feeling the unspoken words as profoundly as any spoken ones. "I know, but you're not alone." They stood there for what felt like an eternity, united by a promise of shared suffering and hope, the cathedral's ancient heart bearing witness to their silent bond. The world outside was still in turmoil, but within these walls, amidst this moment frozen in time, a glimmer of peace had been found. As they pulled back slightly, Cale's eyes were brimming with emotions he rarely showed: fear, the hope, and the unyielding love he held for Aaron. He whispered, "No matter what happens next, I'm here." Aaron's breath caught in her throat as she looked into Cale's eyes. They were no longer cold or distant, but warm and full of promise. For the first time since this war began, she felt a glimmer of hope. Her fingers curled around his hand, holding on to him with everything she had. "Let's not let go," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. The cathedral walls seemed to hum in agreement, resonating with a quiet certainty that perhaps, just perhaps, peace could be found after all. But for now, it was enough a promise of resilience and hope amidst the chaos. "Stay," Cale said softly, his hand tightening around Aaron's. In that moment, as their hearts synced in beat and their souls intertwined, the cathedral's ancient magic shone brightly, illuminating a path forward. The promise of peace and unity was not yet fully realized, but the first tentative steps towards it had been taken. And so they stood together, guardians of this fragile hope, ready to face whatever came next, side by side. Final line: together. And so they stood under the moonlight, staring at each other with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The night had been long and fraught with uncertainty, but their resolve had never wavered. It was this unspoken bond that had carried them through, and it was now all that mattered. In that moment, there was no need for words. Everything had already been said in the silence. Rai stepped forward, extending a hand towards her friend. "Go home," she whispered, her voice tinged with both weariness and a hint of joy. Home was more than just a place, it was a promise, a sanctuary where they could finally relax and breathe, where they could forget about the chaos outside and remember why they fought. Miranda didn't hesitate, placing her hand in Rai's and allowing herself to be led away from the battleground. The air was cooler here, carrying with it the faint scent of rain. It was as if nature itself was beginning to heal, mirroring their own emotional wounds that were slowly knitting back together. As they walked side by side, a silent agreement between them: they would face whatever came next. Together, they moved silently through the night, their shadows lengthening and shortening with each step, blending into the darkness like two halves of a single silhouette. The stars above twinkled reassuringly, as though acknowledging the strength of their bond and its profound resilience against all odds. As dawn approached, they arrived at the place they called home, a small cottage nestled in the heart of an ancient forest, its wooden walls warm and inviting under the rising sun's first rays. Without speaking, they shared a look of promise to embrace the new day, to carry forward what they had learned, and to stand strong against whatever challenges lay ahead. Inside the cottage, they paused at the threshold. Rai glanced back at Miranda, her eyes reflecting the same determination she saw in her friend's gaze. This was where they would begin, not by erasing what had come before, but by acknowledging it and growing stronger from it. They entered, leaving behind the remnants of the night on the doorstep. In the cozy living room, a fire crackled merrily in the hearth, casting dancing shadows across the walls. The scent of brewing coffee filled the air, and Miranda automatically went to the kitchen, pouring 2 steaming cups. Rai joined her, accepting the mug with a grateful smile. As they sipped in silence, the world outside seemed to slow down, allowing them to catch their breath. The rhythm of their lives here was different from the urgency and intensity of the battlefields they had left behind. Here, they could focus on rebuilding and healing. Miranda set her cup down and turned to Rai, her voice soft but steady. "We're not alone in this," she said, her eyes traveling around the room as if searching for unseen allies. There were signs everywhere, books about strategy and history lining the shelves, tools ready for new projects, and notes scribbled with plans for the future. Every item bore witness to their journey so far. Rye nodded, feeling the weight of shared responsibility lift slightly. "There's more to come," she replied thoughtfully, her gaze drifting out the window where early sunlight cast a golden glow over the trees. "But we're prepared." Their conversation continued in murmured tones, discussing strategies and plans for the days ahead. The morning light grew bolder, casting long shadows that stretched across the room as they worked through their thoughts. Each idea was met with nods and smiles, reinforcing their unity and resolve. As the day wore on, they found themselves slipping into a routine, checking messages from allies, preparing supplies, and even taking short breaks to rest and eat together. Miranda suggested starting a garden outside, believing that cultivating life would reinforce their connection to the world beyond their immediate struggles. Rye agreed wholeheartedly, seeing it as a symbol of hope and renewal. Together, they planted seeds in the soil, watching as tiny sprouts began to break through, a vibrant green reminder of their resilience. Miranda often paused during these moments, lost in thought about how far they had come and the many miles left to travel. Yet each time she looked at Rye, working diligently beside her, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. "Why do you think we keep coming back here?" Miranda asked one afternoon, resting on her heels as they finished planting the last row of seeds. "Is it because this place feels safe?" Rye knelt down beside her, meeting her gaze with understanding. "I think it's more than safety. This place is a sanctuary where we can find ourselves again. We're stronger together here." Miranda nodded slowly, absorbing Rye's words. "And yet," she added softly, "it doesn't mean we can't venture out into the world. Every day, there's something new to discover, someone new to help." Rye squeezed her hand, a silent agreement that their journey was far from over, but that every step forward was a step toward something better. As they prepared to leave for another day's work, Miranda wrapped an arm around Rye's waist, pulling her close. "Well, face whatever comes next," she whispered. And together, Rye replied, returning the embrace, "Well, make it through." The bond between them deepened further with each passing day, solidifying their partnership and their resolve. They faced challenges head on, trusting in each other's strength and wisdom. Yet even as they worked tirelessly towards their goals, there remained a soft spot in their hearts for the simple pleasures of life: shared meals, quiet conversations, and the satisfaction of watching their garden grow. Their story continued to unfold not just through action, but in the quiet moments: toothed laughter over a shared joke, the reassurance of a hand placed on a shoulder, and the unspoken promises exchanged as they looked into each other's eyes. These were the threads that wove together their tapestry of resilience and hope, a testament to the strength that comes from true companionship. As seasons changed, so did they. Each challenge they faced forged them stronger, closer. Yet, amidst the storms of life, it was the gentle, quiet moments that kept their spirits alive and vibrant. It was in these moments that they reminded themselves why they fought, not just for victory, but for the precious peace and happiness that lay ahead. Together, they faced an uncertain future, but with each other by their side, there was nothing they couldn't conquer.